Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. The only centaurs, DM, AJ3. How are you guys doing? You guys beat me here. So, we got to talk about this crazy, crazy story that stumbled across my timeline. And it's quite ugly. It's quite an ugly tale of a sex offender working in NWA. Uh, it's it's a disaster, bro. There's two different articles on this thing, so we're definitely going to be talking about that. If time permits, and if all things go well, we will also be discussing Hulk Hogan at the Republican National Convention, only because Hulk Hogan is going to be entertaining. Linda McMahon, not so much. Linda McMahon has already spoken at the Republican National Convention, and she didn't really talk much about wrestling or anything. She talked about her experience with Donald Trump as a individual and as uh, and being in his cabinet. That was pretty much it. Linda McMahon, as usual, not going out there to ruffle any feathers. So everything's pretty smooth with her. But the Hulkster, oh man, Hulkster is going to be entertaining. Now, if I missed the Hulkster's entire thing, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. Um, I don't really care about the Republican National Convention. For starters, I'm not a Republican. Secondly, so far in this convention, they had Amber Rose, who was a stripper and an admitted slut. There was some kind of Sikh ritual, which for a Christian nationalist organization seems kind of weird. Now they're going to have the racist Hulkster and wife and wife slapper Dana White. Like, I don't understand what's going on at the Republican National Convention, but I am grotesquely interested in what Hulk Hogan is going to say, what Dana White's going to say, and what Trump is going to say. But if anything entertaining comes out of those things, it'll probably end up in a video tomorrow, but not anything that needs to be done today. So, what's going on with the NWA? Well, there is a site called Audacity or Audacy, and there was a reporter by the name of Rob Jones. His first reporting was July the 10th, 2024, and it says registered sex offender from Georgia worked on national TV wrestling show at a school. It says the National Wrestling Alliance, or NWA, held a national TV taping for their show that airs on the CW app. The specific taping was held in Knoxville, Tennessee, June 1st at Carnes High School. At that taping, a Georgia man named Raymond Luther Rawls was working for the NWA. Mr. Rawls is best known in the pro wrestling industry as Rick Michaels. Who the hell is Rick Michaels? I have no idea who that is. I have no idea who Rick Michaels is. But he worked there as Rick Michaels. He wrestled for years, making appearances in ECW, and then later as a booker and promoter for NWA Wildside and other promotions. Rawls or Michaels trained WWE star AJ Styles along the way. He worked for WWE as a costume tailor before being fired in 2005. Rawls was fired after pleading guilty to sexual exploitation of a child. Rawls was fired after pleading guilty to sexual exploitation of a child. What is Billy Corrigan doing in NWA? What is he doing? Why is this person? Why is this man
Hulk Hogan imitate Donald Trump?
on your
I've
show?
done business with the brother a couple times, rented out the Trump platform.
Why is this guy featured on your program? Why is this guy featured on your program? Sexual exploitation of a child. It was announced back in 2005. I'm looking at WrestleZone right now. It says WWE Today announced that they have released Raymond Rawls, aka wrestler Rick Michaels of NWA Wildside fame, from his position within the company following pleading guilty to sexual exploitation of a minor today in Georgia. Rawls had been working as a tailor for the company, designing and creating outfits for wrestlers, something he had been doing as a side project while wrestling independently. He was fired September 29th, 2005. September 29th, 2005, this guy was fired from WWE because he pled guilty to sexual exploitation of a child. Billy Corgan, can you not Google people? Do you not do background checks? I understand that Billy Corgan is in the music business. This kind of thing is pretty normal in the music industry. I'm surprised he didn't adopt the child first. What is wrong with these people? Back to the article. He is still on the Georgia sex offender registry. They even got the guy's mugshot with him smiling. What a sick bastard. What a sick son of a bitch. The Georgia Registry Legal Code is plain about registered sex offenders being prohibited from working at a school or place where minors will congregate. The Tennessee Registry Legal Code has very similar language in it. While Rawls is not currently on probation, as his guilty plea came in 2005 and wouldn't face any perceived issue there, the Georgia Registry Code was violated by a registered offender in another state, which has seemingly reciprocal registry laws. The NWA Power tapings were shot at Carnes High School in Knoxville, which would seem to be a glaring violation, and there were minors in attendance. There were minors in attendance. It says, I know Rawls, aka Michaels, was there June 1st because I was also there and saw him. Although I do not know him personally, at least two people there confirmed it was him. His background at that moment. He was not only there prior to the show, but was out in the gym while the show was being shot, working as part of the support staff. I have reached out to NWA multiple times requesting comments on this situation, and they have not responded thus far. The National Wrestling Alliance has not answered any questions on whether they knew Michaels was a convicted and registered sex offender when they brought him on to work the show. I also inquired about the company's stance on working with sex offenders and if they plan to work with Rawls in the future. All questions still unanswered at the time of this report. This was, again, July the 10th. This guy gets busted working at an NWA show, and the show is in a high school. In a high school, brother. What a sick son of a bitch. I don't understand this, man. I don't get this. I don't get it. They booked this man. Maybe look, the only thing I can say is maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't know. I'm looking at this thing. There's another article about him from the same writer, but we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about it in a second. I'm trying to look up some more information on this guy. I didn't do a lot of digging on him because I didn't want to turn this into an entire rant about this one dude, this one lowly indie wrestler who made an appearance at a show. I don't want to get too much of this all over everybody. What a disaster. It's disgusting, I must say. I must say. There were some other people that talked about this guy. Revenge of the Sis talked about him. It says he talk about sex offenders in pro wrestling, and here he is. You know, Raymond Luther Rawls, charged with sexual exploitation of children. He was fired by WWE after his arrest. Yet in the indie wrestling scene, he's still working consistently. He even has a show coming up soon, according to this tweet from PWA in Georgia. This is horrifying, bro. This is a disaster, bro. This is not good. I think we all deserve better. I think NWA deserves better. Why are they doing these unforced errors? These are unforced errors. Nobody is asking you to book these weirdos. Who's having you book weirdos, bro? Nobody. You don't have to book these weirdos. So, Rob Jones did a follow-up article on July the 17th, so a week later. And it says more details on Georgia registered sex offender working in pro wrestling. It says retraction printed below due to technicality. Feel free to read through. So he's quote unquote retracting the previous story. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, what's happening here? What's going on? Turns out, not much to retract. Let's get into this article. He says, as we previously reported, the NWA held a show June 1st at Carnes High School in Knoxville, Tennessee. While at that show, I saw a man identified to me by multiple people as Rick Michaels. I will later find out that Michael's real name is Raymond Luther Rawls. I also found out Mr. Rawls is a convicted and still to this day registered sex offender in Georgia. In previous reporting, I asserted that it seemed to me and others who I sought for legal opinion on the matter that Mr. Rawls violated the Georgia Sex Offender Registry, which it does have plain language prohibiting a registered sex offender from working at a school or in a place where minors congregate, which a wrestling show at a school would seem to constitute. That point has been argued by some Rawls apologists, including wrestling journalist Larry Goodman of Georgia Wrestling History blog. The argument stems from the date of Rawls' conviction. I'm going to look this guy up, this Larry Goodman, because I want to see what he actually said, and it's not just this guy being hyperbolic. You know, so I want to look this guy up because I want to get his side of the story and everything. We'll come back to it. Let's see. Larry Goodman, Rick Michaels. Let's do this. I should have just finished the article I was reading. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the article I was reading. All right, so it says the point has been argued by some Rawls apologists, including wrestling journalist Larry Goodman. The argument stems from the date of Rawls' conviction. As the Georgia Registry states, on or after July 1, 2008, no individual shall be employed by or volunteer at any child care facility, school, or church, or at any business or entity that is located within 1,000 feet of a child care facility, a school, or a church if the commission of the act for which such individual is required to register occurred on or after July 1, 2008. So those defending Mr. Rawls, according back to the article, state that given the date of his conviction being 2005, that the registry code was indeed not violated. I have contacted the GBI Sex Offender Division and asked them to rule on whether a violation took place. I am still awaiting that response as of the time of this report. It is very obvious here that Goodman and his ilk are looking for the date of offense as a loophole to defend Mr. Rawls being involved in pro wrestling. Let's pause right here. Again, without seeing the other guy and how he feels, I don't like that idea. If a guy is correcting you because you're clearly wrong about something, and then you later admit that you were wrong about it, you don't then get to play the moral high ground. Look, I agree with this guy, this Rod Jones. This person should not be working in wrestling. He certainly should not be working in a school, even if that's where the show is. You take that day off. All right. If you had anything to do with a sexual exploitation of a minor, I don't even see why you're still above ground. All right. But here we are. But the guy's just correcting you. We don't know if he's a friend of Rawls or not. I'm not going to assume that he is. But he might be just one of those well actually kind of guys, you know? Well, actually, it might be that kind of gimmick. So he continues by saying, while a concrete legal opinion from the state of Georgia on this exact issue is awaited, I would like to retract my assertion that Mr. Rawls violated the Georgia Sex Offender Registry. Based on this date of conviction loophole, he may have not violated any law. However, had his conviction for sexual exploitation of a minor came a few years after 2005, the registry would be very clear. It seems to be a gray area here that is being operated in. Well, it's not really a gray area as much as the law says this, and that's what they're going with. I disagree with that, though. I certainly wouldn't hire the fucking guy. I can tell you that much. However, the main crux of this story remains. Raymond Rawls, a convicted registered sex offender in Georgia, worked for a national wrestling company on a TV taping that took place at a high school. Something I think is noteworthy and of interest to the public. Judging by the amount of traction that the previous article got, I would say I am validated in thinking that way. Mr. Goodman also asserts that the date line of conviction is how Mr. Rawls has continued to work for Georgia-based wrestling promotions in the years since his conviction. The approach seems to be never mind what is ethically right and what isn't, as long as a loophole can be found. I don't like when people are on a perch like this. Just, this whole righteous thing he's got going on. I understand being mad, but let's not get too righteous, It says, the approach seems to be never mind what is ethically right and what isn't, as long as a loophole can be found. It is in my mind an indictment on the people involved in Georgia indie wrestling that they continue to work with Mr. Rawls or Michaels, regardless of the legal loophole. I agree with that. He says, I made my living in journalism for 17 years now, across the nation in various large and small markets. This is the first time I have ever seen a journalist such as Larry Goodman defend a convicted and registered sex offender. So for argument's sake, I will retract my assertion that Mr. Rawls violated the law of the Georgia and or Tennessee Sex Offender Registry Code. However, I see it as a smokescreen or a diversion from the actual matter at hand, which is that a registered and convicted sex offender has been allowed to work in an industry that many of its events are in schools and many of its fans are children, something that defenders of Rick Michaels seem to skim over. I agree with all of that. There's just no excuse for this, bro. It's only thing you can say is, look, I didn't do my due diligence, which, fine. You didn't do your due diligence. Just say that. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody looks over things. You pay it no mind. It was almost 20 years ago. You didn't Google him. You didn't look him up. You didn't do a background check. He just showed up, or he was a referral from somebody else. That's all you really have to say is, oh man, we didn't know that. It was a referral from, a trusted colleague or whatever, or another trusted guy says, hey, this dude is okay. Bring him on. And we did. And we didn't think that much of it. This story probably wouldn't have got so far if they'd have just done that. It says the NWA has not responded to any of my questions or requests for comment from them. However, they have reportedly cut ties with Mr. Michaels. Yay. The question remains, did they know ahead of bringing him to work as part of the support staff June 1st? That is a question they have not answered. Goodman told me, quote, people in the NWA had to have known. If that is the case, it appears that the NWA is only acting in reaction to the light that has been shined on them for working with a convicted and registered sex offender. I have also reached out to Mr. Rawls himself. I have posed questions for him via email pertaining to this story. As of the time of this report, he has not responded to those questions. While the law might be debatable in this case, I don't think there is any debate of what is right and wrong here. Personally, as a father whose child is a wrestling fan, I would never allow her to go to a wrestling event in which registered sex offenders are allowed to work for the promotion. I think most people would agree with that logic, and you are correct. Most people would agree with that logic. He says, the problem has now become we, the public, don't know which promotions are working with those offenders and which ones aren't. The only way we know is when light is shed on situations such as this. An industry that many of us became fans of as children, in my opinion, should be a safe place for should be a safe space for kids now. As my grandmother used to say, just because something isn't illegal doesn't mean it should be done. I know that many people around Georgia indie wrestling were upset by my original article, but ask yourself why. Were they upset that a light was shined in the darkness on a mainstream platform on an industry that seems at times to operate in the shadows? I know that shining the light on this was the right thing to do. It hasn't come without its share of backlash among those who defend Michaels. I am reminded of another saying of my grandma. The right thing to do isn't usually the easy thing to do. I honestly can't imagine as a parent being engaged in the argument of the loophole on this and not the actual crux of the story. This is tremendous. I mean, absolutely tremendous. I cannot believe they are this stupid. What is going on? What is going on in this in India in the NWA? Why is the NWA doing this? He can't be that talented, and it can't matter that much that we're keeping this guy around. It just it can't. What is going on? What do you think guys think is going on here? You think that old Billy Corgan has lost his marbles? You think Billy Corgan is out of his mind? I think he's beyond out of his mind at this point. I will be trying to get the hell out of this story. That's all I can tell you. I'll be running away from this one. I will be telling people as much as possible that I don't have anything to do with this. That's what I will be saying. I'll be like, bruh, complete and total accident, bro. Complete and total accident, don't want to talk about it. Sick shit right here, man. Really sick. I'm looking up this Larry Goodman. I'm on the Georgia Wrestling History blog. I see his name, but I don't see that he's talked about this subject. Let's see if I can find Rick Michaels on here. Let's see. Let's see if Rick Michaels pops up. Wait a second. So it's there's quite a bit of Rick Michaels material on here. There's a I don't know what is this? Is it a video? Is it a story? It's called The Redemption of Rick Michaels. It was written in 2014 from a guy named Stephen Platinum. It's part one of two, so there's a two-part series. This is this is insane, bro. So this guy is talking about the redemption of Rick Michaels. How was he redeemed? That's what I want to know. So let's go into what this guy wrote here from the Georgia Wrestling blog. It's called gwhnewsandnotes.blogspot.com. It said Peach State Wrestling Alliance had never seen a crowd that big. PWA had promised to show before 668 fans. Oh my God. Oh my God. They drew 668, a mind-boggling number by the standards at the time. Rick Michaels made sure that everything looked right. The staff looked sharp in their new collared shirts. The gear on the boys was top-notch. Rick was in a suit and looked every bit the part of the booker. It was a night that he was determined would go perfectly. It was a team effort to put the show together and have it go well for certain. Shane Knowles had made the smart decisions that led to this moment. Now, this is 2014, so this is almost 10 years after his conviction. You know, it's I'm trying to get to the point here. So they're saying that they want Rick to wrestle, even though he's the booker of this show. Okay, so we get into this thing. It says Rick told me his story. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He wasn't overly specific with details, but it was clear that Rick knew that he fucked up. It was also equally clear that he had lost everything: a wife, a family. He had been to the pinnacle of wrestling, making gear for guys in WWE. He was a famous figure in the Georgia wrestling scene, and now seemingly nobody would book him. TNT would take him back in, other promotions as well, but it was clear that he wanted to wrestle now. And Peach Tree, what is this? Peach States Championship? Is that what it's called? Is that what it's called? No, I don't know. PCW, whatever that is. Has always been and will always fucking be about that shot. We're the goddamn Raiders of wrestling. And now Rick Michaels was here. So this guy must work for PCW. This is this bothersome right here, bro. Rick was back, and there were big time stumbles along the way at PCW. A shoot promo where Rick went on a tirade against Bill Behrens, brought up some very ugly things in regards to wrestlers he hurt in the past. It was stunning. It was frightening in many ways. It's not as frightening as him telling you about the sexual exploitation of a child. What is wrong with you? Rick, who had battled abusing alcohol, showed up at a PCW show at the Masquerade. Simon was there. Who is Simon? I don't know who Simon is. Reassuring me that it would never happen again. So he showed up lit at a PCW show. So this guy is a registered sex offender, and he showed up to your show drunk. And somebody came up to you and says, "Oh yeah, it'll never happen again. I promise. Cross my heart and hope to die. It'll never happen again." What is wrong? What is up? Why are these guys such cucks? Bro, you are a cuck. You're giving a sex offender a second chance, which is a miracle, and he shows up drunk, and you're just kind of like, I'm going to write an article telling everybody how great this is. Like, I'm all for forgiveness, but not when it comes to people brutalizing children, abusing children. Are you? Let's continue. In the midst of all this craziness, Rick continued to get booked. More and more places were bringing him back in. Rick had worked out hard, delighted in showing people how he looked. There was a definite hubris there. What? Rick was scheduled to be in the then MGCW War Game show. I don't know what that is. He made it back to the main event in a match that would feature former WWF stars Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. So Road Dogg and Billy Gunn wrestled a convicted sex offender. Oh my God. What is going on, bro? Why is this happening? Why did I stumble upon this? Why do I have to get all. And it's not even the end. It says he made it back to the main event in a match that would feature former WWF stars Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. He was cutting promos online. He was in the mix. He was making his mark. Then he got arrested again. This was supposed to be about his redemption. And we're talking about him showing up to shows drunk and getting arrested. Now there's a part 2 to this nonsense. There's a part 2 to this garbage. We're going to go through that too, of course. Poor AJ Styles. His picture is all over this place. And I put in the guy's name and AJ Styles' picture comes up. For God's sake, bro. For God's sake. What on earth? How disastrous is that? So, Rick Michaels is a 3-time NWA World Tag Team Champion with his partner David Young. Or the cab driver David Young, that Marky D123. That's how I know that guy. I don't know that guy from anything except for Marky D123 calling him a cab driver. Okay, so it says Rick Michaels is a 3-time NWA World Tag Team Champion with his partner David Young and a tag team called Bad Attitude. Michaels, throughout his wrestling career, dealing with the guy, often had a bad attitude. Always the consummate wrestling person. Always on the lookout. Rick was going to go over whenever he dealt with you. Not in terms of winning a wrestling match, but in not being taken advantage of. Getting his way. This is not the way to talk about somebody who has sexually exploited a child. He's putting this guy over major. This is disturbing. It says Rick has a bucket list of things he wants to accomplish in wrestling, and he's damn near done them all. Gawk, gawk. He's a guy that always found a way to indulge his wants, while sometimes, to the detriment, avoids his needs. But something that's never been in question is Rick Michaels performing in the wrestling ring or a promo. Dynamic, visceral, a guy who brings it every single time. What? This guy's a sex offender. How could you write so glowingly about a sex offender? He says, and for all the blustering or anger directed towards Rick over the years, he has a joy wrestling that is unsurpassed by anyone else. Wrestling fans have got to be the weirdest people on earth, dog. I swear to God, man. Like, it's so strange, bro. Like, from people still idolizing Chris Benoit to this kind of shit. This guy's a grimy indie wrestler, and somebody has a blog dedicated to putting him over. He wrestles so good. He is a convicted sex offender whose crime involved children. Why are you writing all this positive shit about him? Oh my God. He says, anyone else. He loves wrestling as a fan, as a performer, as the guy in charge. He loves pro wrestling. Has given back more than he's been given. And that's saying a lot. Were you there at DSCW when Bad Attitude wrestled again with Bill Behrens in their corner, no less? Probably not. But if you knew the story and just think about that for a moment, what a redemptive moment that is. And he starts talking about all of these, all of this wrestling. Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's go back. It says WrestleWare. It says through tailoring wrestling gear that Rick worked for the Fed. That's the WWE. It's through tailoring wrestling gear that Rick can truly make a living, stand on his own 2 feet, and make the connections to anyone in the wrestling business. Rick's work graces every locker room that matters in wrestling. He's come all the way back. His gear is top notch, featured on any number of WWE and TNA wrestlers and in national commercials. WrestleWare and Rick Michaels have a good name again. No, nobody knows who this guy is, but this is deeply problematic. I'm about to go full SJW on this shit, man. I'm I'm actually starting to feel I feel it overflowing. I feel it bubbling up. This stew should be boiled in oil. So they're still talking about him. This thing is an egregiously long gawk gawk and Haktua. That's what this going on here. It is absolutely insane. What I'm looking at here. I'm not even reading all the words. I'm just looking at how this guy's been putting them over. So it says, in this moment, Rick Michaels conquers his fear. He is in the dark, nobody telling him how great he is. The feeling of elation being replaced with something else entirely. Rick Michaels is comfortable with himself. Rick, who loves invoking his real name in shoot style promos. Rick, who has often lied to others and himself in the past. Rick, who only seems to face hard truths when it was forced upon him. Now he gets to face a truth on his own terms, alone, without fear. Wants and needs are both being fulfilled, and those wants are no longer destructive. He's finally something close to a man he used to be, living the life he was meant to live all along. What what the fuck? Man, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, you bum? Oh, wait, that's not AJ Styles. Who is this guy? Oh, whew, I thought AJ Styles' face was pasted off. That's not AJ Styles. My vision is terrible. I thought it was AJ Styles. Sorry. But it's a show that Rick Michaels worked on in 2015. So exactly 10 years afterward, his a year or two after his supposed redemption, 10 years after he was forced out of the business due to a little thing called sexual exploitation of a child. For God's sakes, I mean, what the hell, bro? Like, really, what on earth is going on here? This is a goddamn disaster. This sucks the hard way. I'm sorry. In 2018, on this website, he won a Georgia Wrestling Award. I don't know. I don't understand. It says legend. Rick Michaels, Robert Gibson, Ed Zahn, Murder One. Now, wait a second. That cannot be Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express. And Rick Michaels won this award over him. That can't possibly be true. I'm looking at, what is going on here? I guess Legend of the Year. This guy's considered a legend. What a disturbing. What did I stumble into, bro? I'm feeling ill. I'm legit starting to get sick. This is dumb fuckery. This is real stupid, bro. I done fell down a rabbit hole, man. This is why I don't do live videos. This sucks. Because I'm just finding all this stuff out right now, man. This is ill. This is some really ill shit. Um, they gave this good like Legend of the Year award over Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express. They can't be the same person. You know, that can't be Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express. It just can't be. I can't imagine they would be that stupid. Mitch Colburn says Rick Michaels was in a Marky D123 video reviewing the early NWA TNA. He teamed with his kayfabe brother Chris. So that means he was on TNA. What was that? Back in 2003, 2004. I think that's when that video or that NWA TNA would have happened. That's interesting. There's an archive on this guy. Let's see what's happening here. Wait, I don't. Nope, this is an audio file. I don't want. I don't want nothing to do with that. Oh my god, bro. NWA that desperate, right? Like, how desperate do you have to be? How sick do you have to be? Like, I get it, man. You really you want to just be able to let guys move on and get a new life and all that, but he should go bag groceries or something. He can go do something else. Like, I know there's not a lot of stuff in the world you can go do, and where there's children, you know, where you can't be around kids. I get it. Like, what can he do except for like go work in a bar or something where there's not going to be any children around? But he's more likely to get the shit kicked out of him in a bar than anywhere else in the world. You can't really go bag groceries because grocery stores have kids all over the place. So I understand that's a really strong and problematic rule, but might be necessary, my guy. Only problem I got with it is I think sometimes people end up on those registries a little for things that have nothing to do with sex. You know, I think we need to be a little bit more judicious with throwing people on those rules. I mean, throwing those people on those roles, but other than that, I absolutely think that people should be banned from hanging around schools if you're on a sex registry. I just can't believe this. Like Buck Zumhoff. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Buck Zumhoff was a disaster, wasn't it? Wasn't that terrible? Ugh. Yeah, Buck Zumhoff was a disaster, bro. Creep ass nigga too, man. He's a creep. All these creeps, man. I don't understand why we end up in this situation with these all these weirdos, man. Wrestlers, 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 wrestlers. What can you do? Here's a weird tweet. What's this weird tweet says here? Matt Seidel tweeted out, if you're a wrestler in Georgia, don't work for Rick Michaels. Avoid him. Do not let your friends work for him. Matt Seidel did this is in 2017. He's saying, don't let your friends work with Rick Michaels. Don't let him do it. He's a sick bastard. He's a son of a bitch. So, Ring the Damn Bell also has a piece on Rick Michaels. And Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. This is crazy. We're gonna talk about this. So Wrestling with Sin number 74, June 2016 by Brain Damage. It says, after spending about 13 years on the independent circuit, Rick Michaels, real name Raymond Rawls, got an opportunity on the biggest stage of them all, WWE. He wasn't hired as a professional wrestler, though. Instead, Rawls was hired by the company as a tailor. You see, Rawls was not only a wrestler, but a gifted tailor who created custom ring outfits. After being highly recommended by his friend Chris Benoit, Ray Rawls was hired by the company in 2004. Rawls made countless ring tights for Benoit and others with favorable reviews. In 2005, however, things took an ugly turn as Rawls was accused of exposing himself to a minor in his home state of Georgia. Rawls pled guilty on the charge and was immediately fired from the WWE. Rawls continues to wrestle independently and create ring outfits for wrestlers in TNA and the Indies. A friend of Chris Benoit, brought to the WWE by Christopher Michael Benoit. I'll just be damned. I'll just be damned. Why would you have this guy, who everybody seems to know is a sex offender? Why would you have this guy on your roster? Why would you have this guy hanging around? Why would you do that? This is a 100% unforced error. this, this is ridiculous, man. This is ridiculous. Billy Corgan looks like time skip Adam Pearce. Ho ho! No, he's way more pale than Adam Pearce. Man, Adam Pearce looks like R-Truth compared to Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan looks like Voldemort. He looks like he's half dead half the time. You know, this is a disaster. But it's a very small. Uh, I guess I don't know if it's a newspaper or an article of some kind. It's not like, none of the big wrestling media sites is talking about this. So, I guess people don't think it's important because none of the big wrestling sites like, WrestleNomics ain't picked it up or Fightful ain't talking about it. So a lot of people are kind of like, he's an indie wrestler. Who cares? Like, I care. As somebody who kind of watches NWA from time to time, I do see this. And I see that Rick Michaels actually did wrestle a match in WWE. He wrestled in July 2001. He did a dark match against AJ Styles, where it was AJ Styles' tryout match. So it was before a Raw taping in July 9th, 2001. So Rick Michaels has actually worked in WWE for 4 years. 4 years before he exposed himself to a minor. Why did he do that? Why would you? Why would you? Why would you? This is a disaster. Now I gotta look up Rick Michaels and AJ Styles just to see if AJ Styles talked about him recently. I gotta see. I gotta see it. I don't see anything so far. Unforced themselves all the way to the CW app. Yeah, just a real just brain dead stuff. It's just mush. Why would you do half the stuff that they've done? And then the shows they're almost unwatchable. Like I tried watching a recent show like last week or something like that, and I couldn't even find the newest episode because I think they're just kind of labeled weird. Because I really couldn't even find like the newest episode. So It seems weird. Let's see. I don't see anything where AJ Styles is talking about this guy. But he was interviewed for the closure of a wrestling landmark building or a famous wrestling facility, Landmark Arena in Cornelia, Georgia, um, for Anarchy Wrestling's Violent Night 2022. So it says the arena, which is a gym of the Old Mud Creek Academy Elementary School. 2 years ago, he was wrestling at an elementary school. 2 years ago. And he's talking about this being a tradition and given the history of this building. Wait a minute. This might actually be interesting. So it says this arena that they're talking about, Landmark Arena, it said the end of professional wrestling in Cornelia came at the beginning of this year when the 100-year-old facility was no longer insurable, Michaels said. The landlords had not done enough upkeep on the building. We had to fix up the doors, the wiring, and all the other things. There were trees growing through the gutters. Oh, this building is terrible. Here's the reason why I'm reading this. The arena helped spawn the careers of many well-known wrestlers of today, including Xavier Woods, Jay and Mark Briscoe, Austin Theory, Christopher Daniels, Kenny Omega, and others. He says, it's crazy the who's who of people who have come through these doors and have gone on to have bigger stages. And one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling today had his debut match at Landmark Arena in 1998. A young man named Alan Jones from Gainesville was delivering water one day when he expressed interest in wrestling. No one knew that kid would become the phenomenal AJ Styles, now a former WWE and TNA champion, a multimillionaire, and worldwide star. I got to put the star on this. I'm going to come back to it. And then Michael asks about whether AJ Styles knew the business. He says, he told me he liked the Wolf Pack. He says, I was like, oh boy, he has a lot to learn. So I guess when he first met AJ Styles, he talks about training him. He says, Styles said, when I took my first bump, I knew I had to wrestle. I knew that's what God put me on this earth to do. Jones wrestled his first match with a mask on as Mr. Olympia. He said, I trained there to get into professional wrestling. You never forget your first place. Looking back, it's hard to believe how small it was, but back then it seemed huge. Styles said he wrestled under the mask that night because, quote, we weren't sure who I was going to become yet. My mask had Olympic rings on it, and I had my wrestling singlet and shoes from Anderson College. It was nothing spectacular, but for me, to have my first match there was something special. And AJ Styles continues to talking about this building and not so much about Rick Michaels. But Rick Michaels apparently he's some kind of superstar in Georgia, I guess. I don't know. Like some kind of local celebrity. How about that? What a disaster. AJ Styles meets Rick Michaels and he gives him a shot. He trains him, gives him an opportunity. They end up working a dark match on Raw in July of 2001, just 3 years into AJ Styles being in the business. He had been in WCW in 2000, right? With Air Paris, right? And then Rick Michaels becomes the booker for NWA Wild Side, and AJ Styles is working there too. And then, as we just figured out here, Rick Michaels follows him to TNA, NWA TNA. Interesting. This is crazy. And then he ultimately made it to WWE before AJ Styles did, but he made it there as like a tailor. Oh man, what a day! See, we learned something today. Yeah, our truth. Like when I put in wrestling, Georgia, all that kind of stuff, I saw our truth face popped up. You think Michaels worked enhancement versus truth in the early 2000s WWE? What's going on here? Well, how'd I end up on that? So it's amazing how people can get around in this business, huh? Hmm. All you gotta do is a little bit of digging, not too much. There's so many just shady people that float around in wrestling for long periods of time. A bunch of unsavory folk. It's terrible. It's just absolutely terrible. That's really all I had prepared for you guys, man. This guy is a sick puppy. He exposed himself to some kind of underage kid, got arrested for it, pled guilty. Then his big redemption story features him showing up to shows drunk and getting arrested again. You can't possibly be serious. You can't possibly be serious. But I guess when you're a small town guy, you can get away with a lot. You can disappear. You can hide amongst your friends and family, people who appreciate you and aren't looking to, expose any of your misgivings. But I'm deeply, deeply concerned that the NWA shot themselves in the balls because now we know that they're doing weird stuff like hiring sex offenders. Like I get it. He's been fired. I get it. You know, he doesn't work there anymore. I understand. But the fact that he was there and the fact that people wrote such glowing articles about him 10 years after the fact says a lot to me about what's been going on in that area. It's unsavory as all hell. So thank everybody for stopping by. I'm gonna talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.